A very good morning. Today is August 6, 2020. In this video, I'll be discussing regarding the editorial analysis of the Hindu newspaper. The first article is regarding the blast in Lebanon, that is Beirut blast. The second article focuses upon urban migrant and the ritual tug of war. The third article focuses upon the national nuclear vulnerabilities which were taken very seriously in the past. And the final article is on economic recovery, how to pay the stimulus. Before I begin, I welcome you all to Wi-Fi Study Karo. I am Prashant. The first article is regarding the blast in Lebanon. When you look into the world map, where exactly it is, so as you can see here, this is the area where it is Lebanon, that is Beirut. If you just zoom it, you can just see here, this is Lebanon, this is the Beirut, the blast which was taken place yesterday. This is the picture of the blast. So we'll be focusing upon this blast yesterday. So first article is regarding the Beirut battered on Lebanon blast. So blast worsens Lebanon situation as it fights political, economic and health emergencies. So the devastating blast in central Beirut on Tuesday that killed around 135 people and wounded 4,000 had once again turned a spotlight on a city that had in the past covered the civil wars, sectarian violence and foreign intervention and terrorist attack. While there is no breadth of the conspiracy theory, the initial assessment of the government is that the blast was caused by the detonation of more than 2,700 tons of ammonium nitrate that was stored in the warehouse of the Beirut port area 6 years ago. Officials also said that the initial explosion ignited a fire, while second one of the most devastating with the mushroom a cloud of smoke and fire enveloping the capital skyline, and it shook shock waves battering buildings after the city warned thousands. So officials have said that they would investigate any potential terror angle, while the Prime Minister had promised that all those responsible for this catastrophe to the justice. US President Trump had also called this as an attack. The magnitude of the blast and the level of the destruction it caused in one of the busiest areas of the capital city suggests that the casualties would be higher. So Beirut's health care system, struggling to fight off COVID-19, is already stretched. Coping with the aftermath of the blast itself would be an uphill task for the country's beleaguered government. So the blast could not have come to worse for the time of Lebanon. In the recent years, it has been battling with one of the crises and another, it been political instability or a crumbling economy or the pandemic. The massive street protesters that broke out in the Beirut and elsewhere last year against the corruption and the government's inability to provide the basic services to the citizens paralyzed the governance further, leading to Prime Minister Sada Harris' resignation. So the new government immediate priority was to fix the economy, but the economy is still free fall. Prices of essential goods are high, foreign currency is scarce, and also GDP is expected to contract 12% this year, according to the International Monetary Fund. So residents of Beirut are also struggling with long power outages, which are delaying even the rescue efforts after the blast. On the southern border tensions between Israel and Hezbollah have been risen. The Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warning of the military actions. If Lebanon was already in the knees amidst all this crisis, the blast would more likely to break its back. It has also rendered hundreds of thousands of homeless, would deepen the country's economic woes as one of the main ports have been destroyed. So the immediate effect or the focus could be rescuing the wounded and getting the city back on its feet. This is regarding the Beirut blast and how things have happened. It also deepened and deteriorated the economy and one of the major ports, which is a very great business area. The second article is regarding the urban migrant and ritual tug of war. When faced with an imminent threat of life, family is much stronger for migrant labor than an urban occupation. So did our urban means end rationally gets it wrong again. So was it lockdown related job loss that poisoned the well and led migrants workers, mostly single men, to head for their villages, or was there something non-economic or not quite this world, either they turn their stomach. So the migrant workers, when in crisis, is not seeking material help from his family in the village, they are also anyway much poorer than he is. So what disturbs him profoundly at such times is fear of dying alone with nobody to perform the rites for him. So in nearly every religion, the family plays a central role in observance of mortuary rituals. So not just that, these have also been performed correctly so that the departed soul can easily negotiate after the life. So unemployment is a part of life. It is consideration that of this kind are more than financial hardships that prompt single migrant workers to leave for their rural homes. So the Indian laboring classes are much less rattled by the joblessness of unemployment is frequent if unwelcome visitors at their door. So this is clearly an outcome that the fact 93% of economy is informal. Ironically, the Industrial Disputes Act encourages this trend. It mandates employers to pay servants wages and other benefits only if the workers are hired on the roll continuously over the 28 days to 48 days. So this law had also unintended consequences of making it attractive for management to periodically flip labor around. So as a result, only a minuscule minority stays employed for long. So this is regarding the unemployment. And also further, the industrial glue. When faced with an imminent threat of the life, tug of the home and family is much stronger for the migrant workers than the industrial glue that comes with an urban occupation. The job could be well paid and the workers may have been even held for it sometime. There is no laboratory conditions to settle this issue, but comparative approach might help. In Surat around 1979, when there was a widespread fear of the satellite was going to fall, smack the city, create and causing untold deaths, a large number of migrants they left their villages. So again in Surat 1994, the plague scare almost promoted 6 lakh to leave their workstations or the railway stations. So in both these instances, jobs were not threatened, but there was a pursued fear of death. On the other hand, when the demonetization happened in 2016, only few migrant workers left because this distress was primarily economic without a threat of their life. So later in 2020, when the COVID-19 started killing wantonly, there was a radical shift. Now men without families went home because they did not want to die alone. So we missed paying attention to this fact that the latest pandemic exodus it is accompanied by an economic downturn. It also satisfied our middle class mentality because from our angle of vision, economic lenses provide a right focus, a right focal point. So for better off, even a temporary job loss can be traumatic. Besides a bruised self-esteem, there is also an equated monthly installment or EMIs or mortgage to be paid. It is not uncommon under these conditions for a middle class person to turn a family as a first port of call. So data from the survey according to 2018 CBRE survey shows that 80% of young Indian millennial live with the parents. Live with the parents. This was conducted in 2020 tells that they depend upon the parents' real estate properties and savings and they to give them the start. No wonder census figures show that the joint families are growing, albeit slowly in the urban India, but declining in the village. But in short, the bullet point is that unemployment does not send migrant workers to the village because their families there are no position to help them financially. So the rituals and customs among the Muslims, washing of the body as well as lowering the shrouded corpse, are important aspect of the death rituals and ought to be performed by the immediate family. So despite religious variations, certain aspects of Islamic mortuary customs are constant. Death rituals vary among Hindus too. There is no consensus, for instance, on how many days must elapse for major mourning rituals such as Chauta and Shraddha can commence. So also most of the Hindus are cremated, but some are buried too. Only the family would know that the minutiae of these details. So if these and other rules are not followed correctly, the soul of the dead person could suffer perpetual torment in other world. It would take more than a job somewhere to overcome the fear of dying anonymously without a proper ceremonies being performed. So this is also one of the factor. So gender factor is another factor. This is not a trivial observation because women actually from 55% of rural migrants of urban India, if there were fewer of them on highways, it was because arranged marriages have been brought most of them into city, not flimsy job prospect. This makes also transition more permanent because then now generally have properly anchored urban husbands. These women, in the fullness of time, make home birth of the family, and nobody in the unit need any longer fear dying alone in the unprayed. So on the other hand, rural men migrate with a tentative employment prospect, and it will be a long time before they can, if at all, imagine getting their families over. So of course, a stable job with entitlements would let them live their dream. Till then, the thought of death and frantic bus ticket home will always be praised. This is regarding the factors which are responsible for the stimulus package. The next article is regarding the vulnerabilities which were faced by the nuclear blast seriously. So all nuclear weapons states that the admitted to the possibility of a deterrence could fail. 75 years ago, the Japanese city of Hiroshima was destroyed on one single atomic bomb. So 3 days later, a second bomb destroyed Nagasaki. That was around the bomb killed around 2 lakh people. Some of them are instantaneously and others within the 5 months. So another 2 lakh people also, or the more, who survived the bombing of those cities. Most of them injured have been called hibakusha because of the long-lasting effect of the radiation exposure. All went mental trauma they underwent, and the plight of these survivors have been difficult. So this is regarding the Hiroshima and Nagasaki blast. While the Hiroshima and Nagasaki have been the last 2 cities being destroyed by the nuclear weapons, we cannot be sure that they will be the last. In 1945, the United States and Soviet Russia, the United Kingdom, France, China, Australia, Israel, India, Pakistan and North Korea have armed themselves with the nuclear weapons and have much more destructive power in comparison to those destroyed in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So the damage and vulnerabilities, around 1,26,000 nuclear weapons have been built since the beginning of the atomic age. Over 2,000 of them have been used in the nuclear tests above and below the ground to demonstrate the explosive power, causing grave and long-lasting damage to the environment and public health. But this damage is nothing compared to what might have happened if some of the existing weapons are used against the civilian populations. An appreciation of the scale of the potential damage and realization of the nuclear weapons could be launched at the moment against any target around the world should instill a sense of vulnerabilities in all of us. To appreciate why we are vulnerable, we should start by realizing that there is no realistic way to protect ourselves against nuclear weapons, whether they are used deliberately or inadvertently or accidentally. So the invention of ballistic missiles in the end of 1950s with a great speed of delivery has been made it impossible to intercept nuclear weapons once they are launched. So neither fallout shelters nor ballistic missiles defense system have succeeded in negating these vulnerabilities. So nuclear power weapons are target of the other nuclear weapon stages, of course, but non-nuclear weapon stages are vulnerable as well. The problems of deterrence is that nuclear weapons state that have reacted to the vulnerability by coming up with the comforting idea that the issue or the use of nuclear weapons is impossible because of the deterrence. So nuclear weapons are the destructive that no country would use them because such a use would initiate or invite retaliation in a kind of no political leader would be willing to risk the possible death of millions of their citizens. That is what the idea of deterrence. So deterrence enthusiasts claim that nuclear weapons do not just protect countries against the nuclear weapons by others, but even prevent war from promote stability. So these claims do not hold up the evidence. Nuclear threats have not always produced a fear, and in turn a fear have always induced a caution. To the contrary, nuclear threats in some cases have produced anger, and anger can trigger the drive to escalate and also cause Fidel Castro during the Cuban Missile Crisis. So moreover, the apparent efficacy of deterrence is in some cases may have been due to the more credible prospect of retaliation with the conventional weapons. So countries in the nuclear weapons have gone to war quite often, even with the other countries with the nuclear weapons, albeit in the limited fashion or throughout the proxies. Countries, however, might not always show such restraint. So now such nuclear deterrence can be considerable a stage stable. So strategic planners routinely use worst case assumptions about the intention of capabilities on other countries to argue the acquisition of the greater destructive capabilities, driving endless upgrades of nuclear arsenals of offering irrationally for new countries to acquire nuclear weapons. So implicitly, however, all nuclear weapons states have admitted the possibility that of deterrence could fail. They have made plans for using nuclear weapons, in fact preparing to fight nuclear war. The distinction between the ideal possessing nuclear weapons for deterrence and the practically practicality reality of keeping these weapons primed for the use have been eloquently clarified by some of the chiefs and also the strategic commands. So after the years have been using the top operation responsibility for all the US strategic nuclear forces have observed that the goal, the wish real might be a prevent nuclear war, but operational plan had to be in the wage of war. So the illusion of control is that a related illusion concerns the controllability of nuclear weapon. In the real world, it is possible for planners to have complete control. However, the desire to believe in the perfect controllability and safety of nuclear weapon creates a overconfidence which is dangerous. Overconfidence, as many scholars studying safety will testify, is more likely to lead to accidents and possibility to use the nuclear weapons. In several historical instances, when prevented use nuclear weapons was not controlled practices, but either the failure or factors outside the institutional control. So the most famous of these cases, 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. There is likely many more cases during which the world came closer to the nuclear war, but because of the secrecy that surrounds nuclear weapons, we might never know. If deterrence have not been prevented of the nuclear war so far, what has? So while the comprehensive answer to this question will necessarily involve the diverse and contingent factors, one essential element is the key episode is just plain luck. So this is again being illustrated by the case of Cuban Missile Crisis, where nearly 4 decades of scholarship attest of the crucial role of the luck. So consequences of the bad luck then or later could make the COVID-19 pandemic seem benign by the comparison. So while humanity have luck survived 75 years without experiencing nuclear war, can one expect a luck to the last indefinitely? So this is regarding the nuclear war, nuclear and how the things are going on regarding the nuclear and Cuban Missile Crisis in the earlier past. Till 75 years right now, we are experiencing a nuclear war. The next article is on stimulus package, how the financial crisis which have affected the COVID-19. Money financing is a viable route to take us back to the pre-COVID-19 levels of the output. The former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and his Congress party colleague Praveen have in pages written an appropriate policy response to the currently depressed state of the economy. So Dr. Singh gave a deep understanding of the subject that this is a nature of invaluable counsel. Unlike the dispensation in the power, he and his colleagues or the government intervention to revive the economy, the present greater public spending of a sine qua non such as revival, they are absolutely correct in the diagnosis. So they also present the options available and they rank them in sense they are recommending the order in which they ought to be considered for the use. So greater public spending will increase the fiscal deficit, and this expansion has finances. So theoretically it can be financed by higher taxes. However, when the use of economy in a recession, this is also usually not as the reckoning, even though the balanced budget multiplier is 1, that is output expands by exactly the same amount. So debt versus money financing. So what are the options? They are issuing the debt to the public and borrowing from the Reserve Bank of India, termed as money financing, as it increases the money supply. Dr. Singh and Ms. Chakravarti plump for the increased debt. While they do not rule out the quote money financing, they suggest that it might be imprudent to do. Instead, they recommend borrowing from the World Bank and International Monetary Fund external debit. However, it is not clear that it is a superior strategy. The media have recently reported some economic responding to the suggestions of money financing, and there ain't be no free lunch. So, but it may be mentioned that there is no free lunch in the case of debt financing either. not only have money to be repaid, they will have to be paid back in hard currency. So this would involve Indian having to earn hard currency by stepping up the export. If the stimulus package is approximately 10% of the GDP is envisaged with the export of 25% of GDP, it would imply stepping up of the exports by close of 50%. This would be a Herculean task under the present circumstances. India exports have been fairly faring poorly since 2014. So three more issues are relevant when considering borrowing of the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. First is that there is a issuance of conditionalities, and there is no reason to oppose conditionalities on the principle, but this is not obvious what conditionalities will come along the loan. Second is that a loan is bound to take some time to be negotiated, taxing the energies of the government that ought to be engaged in the day-to-day battle in COVID-19. The third is external debt is truly a national, which arguably government bonds held by the country's private sector or not. The topic of subject is that when the money is financing is promised, it elicits a negative response from some quarters with something akin to the taboo invoked against the idea. So, but invoking taboo is not serious economics, which would require the good reason to be given for opposing use of money financing to expand the public spending at present. So, high tangible and institutional costs associated with it, but do not expand on it. So the standard economic argument against the money financing is that it is the inflationary. However, whether a financial or fiscal expansion is inflationary or not related to the mode of the states or economy that is medium in financing. When the resources are unemployed, output may be expected to expand without inflation. As COVID-19 has shocked the output downwards, unemployed resources must now exist. There is no reason case of denying ourselves the option of the money financing to tell us back to pre-COVID-19 levels of the output of employment. This is regarding the articles and also the stimulus package. And that's the end of article discussion of the Hindu editorial. If you are first to my channel, I request you all to subscribe. This is also my Facebook and Instagram ID. Wi-Fi Study Karo. You can follow me there. Thank you. Have a great day.